Hello guys, welcome back to LR Anime. Guys, please like the video and subscribe to my channel. Today is Explanation of Battle Through the Heavens episode number 236 based on novel. So let's start. After the Alliance army withdrew back to the Sky Mansion Alliance, the entire Central Plains had undoubtedly turned into an uproar. The three great ancient clans and the overlord of the Central Plains, the Sky Mansion Alliance. This Alliance army was so powerful that one could not describe it with words. Any faction would be turned into dust under the might of this army. This shock, which caused everyone to panic, did not last for long before the news of the all-out war between the Alliance army and the Hun clan was spread. After all, the big battle between the Alliance army and the Hun clan at the Burial Mountain Range was really far too earth-shaking. It was impossible for that kind of big war not to attract attention. Hence, the moment the big battle ended and the Alliance army withdrew, news of the battle began to spread to every corner of the Central Plains. Some of the factions, which had some conflict with the Sky Mansion Alliance, quietly sighed in relief after hearing that the target of the Alliance army was the Hun clan. Soon after, however, they could sense the most terrifying storm in 1,000 years would soon sweep over the Central Plains with their sharp senses. This storm would be incomparable intense. It would be many times worse than any other war in the past. Many factions began to feel uneasy in the face of this imminent storm. A fight between the frightening existences would likely cause an extremely horrible destruction over the Central Plains. This was clearly a danger that could not be underestimated for the factions that were living on the Central Plains. Even if they were to be briefly touched by a war of this level, it was likely that their entire faction would be destroyed. Hence, those factions, which were located close to the Sky Mansion Alliance, had all hurriedly left their lands after the Alliance army had set up camp at the Sky Mansion Alliance. They were afraid that they would suffer from some unintentional attacks when the war began, which would result in a miserable fate. Xiao Yang and the others ignored this commotion on the Central Plains. At the moment, the Hun clan might have committed various atrocities on the Central Plains, but it was obvious that those factions would not start a war with the Hun clan just because of this. Everyone wished to remain neutral in the face of this big war. Hence, Xiao Yang's group did not plan to pull these factions onto the same boat as them. The large army returned to the Star Realm and began to be busy once again. However, it was fortunate that there was Yarrow Laro and other people in charge of these. Hence, there was no need for Xiao Yang to have a headache over these matters. After all, he was really not very good when it came to management. Xiao Yang sighed in relief after returning to the Star Realm. Even he had felt a little tired after he finally being able to relax from such an intense battle. Therefore, while Yarrow Laro and the others were busy with settling the Alliance army down, he had led Xiao Zhon, Zun and Kaylin back to the mountain, which belonged to him. Xiao Xiao quickly appeared in front of Xiao Yang's group after hearing about news of Xiao Yang's return at the mountain. After which, she swiftly pounced into Xiao Yang's embrace and refused to come down. Come, Xiao Xiao, greet your grandfather. The current Xiao Xiao had begun to appear a little juicy. Adding the natural bewitching look she had inherited from her mother, she was already a beauty despite being young. One could imagine that she would become another great beauty, who could bring disaster to countries like her mother, when she grew up. Xiao Xiao's large black eyes blinked after hearing Xiao Yang's words. She looked at Xiao Zhon beside Xiao Yang. Although this old man appeared to be a stranger, she still obediently called out, "Grandpa." "Good granddaughter." Xiao Zhon's eyes paused on Xiao Xiao the moment the latter appeared. His elderly face had actually reddened slightly from his excitement. That wrinkled-filled old face broke into a bright smile after hearing Xiao Xiao obediently greeted him. Even his eyes had become narrow as he laughingly replied in a hurried fashion. Xiao Yang helplessly smiled after seeing that Xiao Zhon's face was even more excited than when they had met earlier. Old people seemed to be especially fond of little children. After all, from the way they saw it, the continuation of their bloodline was the most important thing in a clan. "Come, Grandpa will give you a hug." Xiao Zhon smilingly extended his hand and forcefully hugged Xiao Xiao from Xiao Yang's embrace. His beard-covered old face continued to touch Xiao Xiao's small face, causing the latter to reveal a bitter expression, beard, pain. "Ha ha," Xiao Zhon involuntarily burst out in laughter upon seeing this. Tears even began to fall due to his laughter. During the decades which he had been imprisoned by the Hun clan, he had basically fallen into a despair. After witnessing the strength of the Hun clan, it was extremely difficult for him to imagine escaping from their hands. At times, he even hoped that Xiao Yang would not go and rescue him. This was because it was far too dangerous doing so. However, when reality was placed in front of him, Xiao Zhon became aware that even though he had always have a great confidence in Xiao Yang, he had still underestimated the ability of this son of his. This kind of family joy really the best thing in the world for Xiao Zhon, who had once ended up in despair. Xiao Yang clenched his fist tightly after seeing Xiao Zhon's appearance. Kaylin and Zun by the side involuntarily had reddened eyes. "Father, let us go and rest first. Coincidentally, I am free during this period of time. I will help you nurse your health." Xiao Yang smiled. After which, he turned towards Kalin and said, "Send someone back to the Jomar Empire and bring my brothers over. Tell them, father is waiting for them." Kalin nodded gently before turning around and leave. Xiao Yang gently exhaled as he looked at Kalin's beautiful figure becoming distant. He muttered to himself in his heart, "Big brother, second brother, I have finally did what I have promised the both of you." The days after the big battle was unusually peaceful. The Alliance army that camped at the Sky Mansion Alliance did not move frequently. However, this atmosphere was an imminent storm had not weakened as a result. Instead, it became even denser. Everyone was aware that this would be the decisive battle between two extraordinary parties. The earth-shaking big battle in the Burial Mountain Range had resulted in both parties suffering some losses. Hence, they were a little quiet during this period of time. Both parties were using this limited time to quickly recover their energy and prepare for an all-out strike. While the army was recuperating, the upper echelons of the Alliance army did not have the time to do so. Jiu Yuan had found a place to undertake a retreat the moment the army had arrived at the Falling Star Pavilion. Everyone knew that he was personally monitoring the Hun clan. With his monitoring the other party, any activity that occurred at the Hun realm would be immediately discovered by him. However, such an activity did not appear during this period of time. It was as though the Hun clan had become completely quiet after obtaining the ancient jade. Another couple of days passed in the blink of an eye as this deadlock continued. After the Alliance army had obtained some rest, they finally began their next course of action. This time around, their target was the Hun clan. Strong individuals from all over the place were orderly divided into many groups that flew out from the Star Realm. After which, they began a carpet-like search from the Sky Mansion Alliance in an attempt to look for the branch hall of the Hall of Soul. In the face of this extremely detailed search, the branch halls of the Hall of Soul were all being exposed one after another. However, after the Alliance army charged into these branch hall, they discovered that it was completely empty inside. Only an extremely few branch halls still had some experts from the Hall of Soul guarding it. However, this kind of protection was unable to pose any obstruction towards the Alliance army. Under this extremely forceful search by the Alliance army, all the branch halls of the Hall of Soul on the Central Plains had been turned into wasteland. Even the most important sky and earth halls had been destroyed by the powerful Alliance army. From this moment forth, the Hall of Soul, which was once renowned throughout the Central Plains, was easily eliminated from it. The outsides could only be shocked in the face of the Hall of Soul being easily destroyed. The previous overlord of the Central Plains actually appeared so weak in the face of the Alliance oppression. However, Xiao Yang and the others had also frowned while the public was shocked. From the looks of it, it was obvious that the Hun clan had already predicted this and have already withdrew the Hall of Soul from those places. Most importantly, the spiritual essence stored in those branch halls had also been shifted away by the Hall of Soul. The action taken by the Hun clan could be considered decisive. They knew that it was basically impossible to protect the Hall of Soul in the face of the Alliance army. In that case, they might as well hand it over to the Alliance. In any case, the Hall of Soul could be said to have achieved its purpose. It did not matter even if it was destroyed. Once their plans succeed, they would be able to rapidly build a couple of Hall of Souls. At that time, the entire continent would be under their control. Following the destruction of the Hall of Soul, the Alliance army could only withdraw once again. After which, they were placed outside of the Hun realm in front of many pairs of eyes in preparation of any activities that could potentially appear. During this period of time, Xiao Ding and Xiao Li had also traveled through the wormhole that already been set up. They directly arrived at the Star Realm from the northwestern part of the continent. There was naturally a moving scene when father and son reunite. That scene caused the eyes of many to redden and their hearts to ache. Who could have expected that the original ordinary but lucky Xiao clan would ended up being separated due to the appearance of the Hun clan from nowhere? After his two brothers' arrival, Xiao Yang had also enjoyed a period of joy from the reunion, which he had not felt for a long time. Additionally, he had also inquired about the matters of the Yang Alliance. This alliance that he had established back then was currently the undeniable strongest faction on the current northwestern part of the continent. However, Xiao Yang did not have any plans to use the strength of the Yang Alliance. From the perspective of the Central Plains, it could only be considered a relatively strong faction. Hence, it was pointless to robe it into the Alliance army. After enjoying a period of family time, Xiao Yang had once again refocused his mind. The matter of the Hall of Soul having gathered all the Chu Shi ancient god jade had been weighing on him. Even though he had currently stepped into the D-state soul, he was still far lacking when compared to a 9-star Do Sheng like the Nihility devouring flame. Hence, before the Hun clan could find the Chu Shi ancient god cave, he must increase his strength as quickly as possible. In this way, it would allow him to be able to have some additionally trump cards when facing an opponent like the Nihility devouring flame. However, after reaching his level, attempting to raise his strength within a short period of time was clearly an extremely difficult task. Hence, Xiao Yang had finally chose to target the 9 mysterious golden lightning that was sealed within Little Yi's body after musing for a long time. After his soul had stepped into the DI state, he already possessed the ability to refine this strength, which he was once helpless against. Xiao Yang stood in front of a tomb that was standing alone on a plains deep within the heavenly tomb. He bowed respectfully towards the tomb before lifting his head. His eyes looked around him. There were many energy bodies present around the plains. However, they did not step anywhere within 10,000 feet from Xiao Yang. Moreover, there was respect and fear in their eyes as they looked at Xiao Yang. Even if one did not mention the fact that Xiao Yang was currently the owner of the heavenly tomb, just the fact that the latter's soul had stepped into the D state was sufficient to cause these energy bodies to shudder in fear. These energy bodies could be considered the natives of this heavenly tomb. Most of these people were relatively powerful existences when they were alive. However, that was when they were still alive. At this moment, they were merely some energy bodies that could only survive by relying on the mysterious heavenly tomb. Xiao Yang had also deeply observed them. There was a total of over a dozen of them who had reached the Dosheng class. Unfortunately, none of them possessed a strength comparable to ancestor Xiao Xian. Xiao Yang smiled involuntarily in the face of this. If there was an energy body here that was comparable to ancestor Xiao Xian, they would not have allowed the heavenly tomb soul to do as it pleased. This lineup could actually also be considered quite a powerful strength. However, due to the uniqueness of the heavenly tomb, they were unable to leave this place. Hence, they were of little help to Xiao Yang. Nevertheless, if I end up meeting an enemy in the future, I can trap him into entering the heavenly tomb. Xiao Yang fondled his chin and laughed softly. Immediately, he sat down in front of the tomb. His eyes were widened as he spoke in a faint voice. Shuedao, help me stand guard. Do not allow anyone to disturb me. Although there were many energy bodies inside the heavenly tomb, Xiao Yang did not really trust them. He could only be considered to be a little familiar to that Saint Shuedao. Hence, Xiao Yang had the intention of allowing him to manage the order within the heavenly tomb. Understood. A blood-clothed figure in the distance hurriedly spoke in a respectful manner upon hearing this. If one was to look closely, it was that Saint Shuedao. The current Shuedao possessed quite a high status within this heavenly tomb. This was because many energy bodies were aware that the newly owner of the heavenly tomb seemed to have quite a deep relationship with him. Therefore, even some of the energy bodies which were far stronger than him were currently extremely courteous to him. Saint Shuedao was happy to enjoy such a change. However, he also understood that he was merely borrowing the strength of others to appear mighty. Therefore, he appeared extremely respectful when facing Xiao Yang. He completely treated himself as the latter's subordinate. Xiao Yang's hands formed a seal after he issued the instructions. Little Yi flashed and appeared on his shoulder. It opened its small mouth without waiting for Xiao Yang's instructions. A golden light was spat out from his mouth. Rumble. Loud rumbling sound appeared in the sky after this golden light had shot out. The golden light swelled with the wind. Within the short blink of an eye, however, it had swelled into a golden lightning dragon that was tens of thousands of feet in size. An enormous lightning arc flickered over his body. The rumbling sound brought about waves of thunder in the sky. Many energy bodies had a change in expression after seeing the golden lightning dragon emitting a terrifying pressure in the sky. They hurriedly pulled far back. If the lightning was to come smashing down, it was likely that many would have been blasted into dust. Roar. The lightning dragon roared in the sky. Those golden dragon eyes did not have any emotion. After all, it was currently only a type of pure energy. Xiao Yang looked at the lightning dragon raging in the sky and smiled slightly. He could clearly sense the violence and strength of the energy. If it was in the past, he might be only able to occasionally borrow its strength. However, it would have likely be extremely difficult task to refine it. However, it was fortunate that he had advanced into the DI state soul. This had allowed the 9 mysterious golden lightning, which he had originally feared, to become a lot more ordinary. The energy of the latter was increasingly powerful. This would allow Xiao Yang to quickly increase his strength. The most important thing for his current self was to possess a greater strength. I wish to said just how tyrannical you can be. The seal formed by Xiao Yang's hand changed once again. The ocean-like unfathomable spiritual strength on his brow swept out like a storm. In an instant, a huge figure that was a couple of times larger than the lightning dragon stood in the sky. The huge shadow was exactly the same as Xiao Yang. However, the rolling pressure that spread from its body was many times stronger than the pressure of the lightning dragon. Just looking at the enormous figure caused a trembling feeling to surge from deep within his soul. That feeling was as though they had met the Emperor of all souls. Only by submitting would they be able to escape from the harm of that pressure. Roar. Under that incomparably huge figure, even the golden lightning dragon, which was void of any intelligence, seemed to have felt the pressure. Its low roar was no longer as wild and violent as earlier. Even the bright lightning glow on his body had suddenly become much dimmer. The huge figure looked down at the lightning dragon from high above. Suddenly, a mountain-like large hand was extended out from the cloud layer and grabbed onto the lightning dragon. Bang! The scales on the golden lightning dragon stood up after they saw the huge claw striking at them. Its large mouth was widened. Many thousand feet large golden lightning balls were shot out. Finally, they ruthlessly collided onto the giant hand, emitting a deafening rumbling sound. Golden lightning arcs flashed crazily in the sky. It appeared just like a golden lightning cloud. However, the lightning cloud directly torn apart the moment it was formed. A pair of large hands containing a terrifying pressure directly grabbed onto the lightning dragon's body. The lightning dragon struggled wildly after its body was caught. Many golden lightning continued to strike onto the huge palm, emitting a series of crackling sound. However, the huge palm did not move. Humph, break it. The huge figure watched the crazily struggling lightning dragon. A sharp cry was suddenly emitted. Immediately, the strength of his palm soared. One could hear a rumbling explosion in the sky, and the golden lightning dragon was shattered by it. The lightning dragon exploded and it immediately turned into a viscous golden liquid, which was suspended in the sky. Those golden liquid contained an incomparably mighty energy fluctuation. After the appearance of the golden liquid, Little Yi suddenly leaped up from Xiao Yang's shoulder. His body swayed and it turned into a 10,000 feet large fire cauldron. The cauldron was opened and a suction force erupted from it. Immediately, the sea of golden liquid became like numerous golden river pouring down from the sky and completely fell into the fire cauldron. After the final drop of golden liquid fell into the fire cauldron, a pink flame within it immediately whistled and rose as it crazily attempted to refine it. At the same time, Xiao Yang, who was below, beckoned with his hand. Countless medicinal ingredients flew out from within his storage ring. Finally, they turned into a medicinal sea that floated in the sky. Xiao Yang did not use an ordinary method to swallow the 9 mysterious golden lightning during this refinement. This was because he understood that with his current strength, even if he was to simply directly refine it, he would at the very most only be able to reach the advanced level 6-star Doshan class. However, Xiao Yang was dissatisfied with this. Hence, he had used another method. It was to use the 9 mysterious golden lightning as the key ingredient to refine a pill. This pill was called the Lightning Calamity Pill. It could be considered a relatively mysterious medicinal pill. Its main ingredient was not something ordinary. Instead, it was the pill lightning. Refining a medicinal pill with pill lightning and adding many medicinal ingredients and monster core into the mix. The pill that was refined would definitely be extraordinary. The Lightning Calamity Pill was also divided into different grades. There were Tier 8 medicinal pills, Tier 9 treasure pills and Tier 9 mysterious pills. The quality of the Lightning Calamity Pill that was being refined is mainly determined by the difference in the main ingredient. If one was to follow Xiao YSM and directly use the 9 mysterious golden lightning as the main ingredient, the Lightning Calamity Pill that was finally refined should be able to reach the Tier 9 mysterious pill level. Xiao Yang had only succeeded in refining the Tier 9 mysterious pill once before. He had also been quite lucky back then. This time around, however, Xiao Yang was extremely confident. The main reason for this confidence was simply because his soul had stepped into the D state. After having reached this level, one would seldom make any mistake when refining pills. Any changes would be detected early and corrected under the observation of the D state soul. Hence, Xiao Yang was not really worried that he would destroy this only 9 mysterious golden lightning of his. His D state soul gave him sufficient confidence. The sea of medicine around the fire cauldron in the sky continued to pour into the latter. These medicinal ingredients had directly turned into the purest medicinal strength the moment they entered the fire cauldron. Finally, they merged into the golden liquid. With an increasing number of medicinal ingredients being poured into the golden liquid, the liquid had also become a little colorful. The surface of the liquid had a continuous flashing lightning on it. At a glance it appeared extremely mysterious. Refining a Tier 9 mysterious pill was not something that could be done immediately. However, Xiao Yang was already prepared for this. It was precisely because of this reason that he had chose the Heavenly Tomb as the location for the refinement. With the difference in the flow of time of this place, he should be able to successfully refine the Lightning Calamity Pill within 1 to 2 months. Hence, lightning roar continuously resounded within the Heavenly Tomb during the subsequent period of time. The huge fire cauldron floated in the distant sky. Those pink flame that spread apart caused many energy bodies to sense a heartfelt horror. This scene continued for almost a month. However, only 6 days had passed on the central plains. After this refinement lasted for a month, Xiao Yang, whose eyes were tightly shut, also slowly opened them. His eyes looked at the fire cauldron in the sky and smiled. Golden light spread within the fire cauldron. The golden liquid had already withered away. However, that fist-sized bright gold-like medicinal pill originally located at the middle of the golden liquid was quietly floating in the cauldron. Many golden lightning continued to seep out from around the medicinal pill while emitting a rumbling sound. The Tier 9 mysterious pill, lightning calamity pill, had been successfully refined. Xiao Yang's expression was pleased as he looked at the fire cauldron and stood up. The pill refinement this time around had once again allowed him to feel the great strength of his D-state soul. If this had been in the past, he would have to exhaust himself greatly in order to refine this lightning calamity pill. Moreover, the most important thing was that there was no guarantee of his success after this exhaustion. Bang! The fire cauldron in the sky above began to churn intensely after Xiao Yang stood up. It vaguely gathered into a lightning cloud. Traces of black thunderbolt appeared just like huge dragons as they shuttled through the churning cloud in the sky. Pill lightning her. Xiao Yang smiled upon seeing this scene. He did not appear concerned. All he did was to wave his hand and the Northern King rushed out from within his storage ring. It directly turned into a black shadow that charged into the lightning cloud. Immediately, the lightning rumbled in the sky. It was possible to vaguely see the many thunderbolts in the sky rushing crazily towards a human figure. This kind of lightning roar continued for around 10 minutes or so before it gradually disappeared. Finally, many pure lightning strength came pouring down from the lightning clouds and landed into the brilliant golden medicinal pill in the fire cauldron. After these lightning strength surged into the pill, the final trace of impurity within the medicinal pill had also been purified. Immediately, a bright golden light erupted from within the medicinal cauldron. The cauldron cover was also forcefully pushed open. That lightning calamity pill within it turned into a light ray that charged towards the sky at a shocking speed. I have spent so much time and hard work to refine you. How can I simply allow you to escape? Xiao Yang laughed. A thought passed through his mind and the huge spiritual figure standing in the sky extended its giant hand. It directly penetrated through the empty space and grabbed onto the escaping golden light. Immediately, his body shrunk and swiftly rushed into Xiao Yang's brow. The brilliant gold medicinal pill was also obediently suspending in front of him. Xiao Yang involuntarily sighed in relief as he looked at the round golden light medicinal pill in front of him. He could sense the terrifying strength within the medicinal pill. The quality of this lightning calamity pill was clearly greater than the Tier 9 mysterious pill that Xiao Yang had refined back at the Yarrow clan. Of course, this was unsurprising. After all, regardless of whether it was in terms of ingredients or his own ability, all of them had far surpassed those from back then. How much strength I can gain this time around will depend on you. Xiao Yang looked at the golden light medicinal pill in front of him and smiled. Immediately, he covered his eyes with his hands. The lightning calamity pill had turned into a ray of golden light that rushed into his opened mouth. Bang! The lightning calamity pill had only just entered Xiao Yang's body when an incomparably wild and violent ripple spread from within it. Immediately, sandy wind blew over the plains. A huge pit, that was hundreds of feet deep and tens of thousands of feet wide appeared on the plains. Xiao Yang was standing at the middle of that deep pit. The tomb behind Xiao Yang continued to stand under the support of a huge stone pillar. Some faint light was being emitted from the tomb, protecting it from being destroyed. Bright golden lightning glow continued to surge out from within Xiao Yang's body. Finally, it spread over its surface and turned into a low and deep thunder roar. Xiao Yang's hair was in a mess while he was being encompassed by the glittering golden lightning. His originally black hair had immediately appeared as though it had been made of gold. While the surface of his body was undergoing a change, Xiao Yang was also crazily roaring within his body. The wild and violent lightning strength had turned into many furious dragons that went on a crazy rampage within their bodies. Regardless of how they charge around, however, it seemed that it would meet an extremely hard and invisible barrier, which reflected all of them back. At the same time, the purifying demonic lotus flame had also whistled and spread within Xiao Yang's body. It directly used the most peremptory method to devour all of these wild and violent energy. After it was refined, it turned into a rolling pure do qi that merged into Xiao Yang's body. With the help of his D-state soul and the strength of the purifying demonic lotus flame, it would be quite an easy matter to refine the lightning calamity pill. The enormous deep pit had a golden light flickering within it. Xiao Yang's tightly shut eyes had a solemn expression in them. The natural energy gradually formed some ripples. Finally, it gathered on this plains. At a glance, it seemed as though there was a world tide-like mysterious scene. Using one's own do qi to cause a world tide. There were hardly anyone in this world with the strength to do this. Jiyu Yuan had also drew a world tide back then. However, its might was clearly many times greater than this world tide Xiao Yang had stirred. After all, there was still a big gap between Xiao Yang and his strength. However, this scene was already quite incredible. If it was an ordinary 7-star elite do sheng, it was likely extremely difficult to perform something like this. The reason Xiao Yang was able to do it was partly because of his D-state soul. The many energy bodies on the surrounding plains involuntarily had a change in expression after seeing the small-scale energy tide in the sky. This person can really be considered a genius. When I met him for the first time back then, he merely had the strength of a dozun. However, the next time I meet him, he had already advanced into the doshun class. This speed can be considered terrifying. Now, he had advanced to an even higher level. In the future, he might really be able to reach the peak level like Xiao Xian, Saint Xuedao muttered to himself. A vague respect was revealed in his eyes. This achievement of Xiao Yang really caused one to have no other choice but to admire him. The surging energy tide had lasted for 10 full days. Only then did it gradually weakened. After another 2 days, the energy tide had finally completely disappeared. A golden light suddenly charged upwards from the enormous deep pit when the energy tide scattered. Looking from a distance, it appeared as though it had penetrated through the world, giving it an extremely spectacular appearance. The golden light shot towards the sky while a figure slowly rose into the air. After which, the figure stepped on the empty space and gently landed on the ground. After his footstep landed, the light pillar also quickly dimmed and vanished from this world. Xiao Yang lifted his head and looked at the energy tide in the sky, which had completely vanished. His hair had once again returned to its normal state. However, those dark black eyes occasionally had some golden color flashing within them. It seemed to possess a strange pressure when one looked at it. 7-star Do Sheng. Xiao Yang sensed the condition within his body. A joy quickly surged onto his face. The effect of the lightning calamity pill did not disappoint him. He was finally able to break through to the 6-star Doshun class and leap into the 7-star Doshun class. This level was already comparable to the older generation experts like the 4 demon saints of the Hun clan and the 3 immortals of the Jiyu clans. Of course, if they were to really fight, Xiao Yang was naturally able to easily defeat them. After all, his DI state soul was not a decoration. It is indeed worthy of being the Tier 9 mysterious pill, lightning calamity pill. Xiao Yang stretched his waist in satisfaction. If he was to use an ordinary method to refine the 9 mysterious golden lightning, it was likely that he would at the very most be able to reach the advanced 6-star Doshun class. There would likely be quite a great difficulty for him to break through to the 7-star. After all, that small step hid a great difficulty. It is time to leave. However, Yarrow Larrow has yet to send any information. It is likely that the Hun clan is still quiet. These people, what are they waiting for? Xiao Yang narrowed his eyes. There was a chill flashing across time. After counting the time, he found that at least 10 days had passed. They should have already completed their recuperation. The Hun clan should be extremely anxious when it come to the Tu Shi ancient god mansion. Their current action appeared to be somewhat strange. Of course, Xiao Yang did not think that the Hun clan had already headed directly to the Tu Shi ancient god mansion and open it without anyone knowing. With Jiyu Yuan personally monitoring them, Xiao Yang believed that there would be no one in this world who could escape from his monitoring without anyone learning about it. Hun Tiendi, I wish to see just what you are planning. Xiao Yang laughed coldly. He immediately waved his sleeve gently and a crack appeared in the space in front of him. He took a stride forward, entered the crack and disappeared. The many energy bodies sighed in relief after seeing Xiao Yang disappear. Finally, they slowly scattered. This was a completely dark and quiet space. Black fog spread over the sky. A dark and cold force seeped across every part of this place. There was a black hall standing in the sky deep within this place. A figure was seated in the air while dark black flames continued to seep out from his body. Looking from a distance, he appeared just like a black hole that was continuously devouring everything in the world. There were many densely packed black figures below. At this moment, one after another light clusters had flew out from within the storage rings of these black figures. The light clusters were transparent. However, there was a pure energy that could cause one's expression to change contained within them. If Xiao Yang was present, he would be able to recognize that these light clusters were surprisingly the spiritual essence that the Hall of Soul had collected. Back then, Xiao Yang had merely refined a cluster of it and his spiritual strength had actually reached the perfect heavenly state. However, there were at least over 100 light clusters present. The interior of the black figure seated in the sky suddenly emitted a wild wind-like sound. Immediately black flames surged out in all directions. A suction force erupted and it actually sucked the many spiritual essence light cluster into it. These spiritual essence were directly devoured after making contact with the black flame. With more and more spiritual essence being forcefully devoured by the figure, a wave of terrifying spiritual fluctuation was also gradually being emitted from within the body of the black figure. Roar. This fluctuation became increasingly strong. At the end, it became almost real, causing the space itself to become distorted. A low and deep roar was emitted from the mouth of the black figure. Suddenly, the black figure stood up. Monstrous spiritual fluctuation immediately erupted in all directions like a volcano. Congratulations on Nihility Sir's advancement into the D-state soul. The densely packed black figures below immediately bowed after sensing the monstrous spiritual pressure. Their respectful voice resounded within this place, causing the ground to tremble slightly. Ha ha! The black figure in the sky involuntarily laughed towards the sky. His eyes quickly turned towards a figure on the mountain below and laughed. Hun Tiendi, it is time to gather the 8 jades and find out where the Chushi ancient god cave is located. A figure stood with his hands behind his back on the mountain. He lifted his head to look at the nihility devouring flame in the sky and smiled faintly. His white clothes caused him to stand out in this seemingly dark and sinister monotonous space. However, no one dared to question this uniqueness. Everyone's eyes were filled with excitement and respect when looking at him. This person was clearly the clan head of the Hun clan, Hun Tiendi. Hun Tiendi took a stride forward and appeared in front of the nihility devouring flame in the sky. He carefully observed the latter before laughing. Not bad. We have finally allowed you to reach the D-state soul after spending such a great amount of effort. Ha ha. The nihility devouring flame also involuntarily laughed out loud. An existence like him would usually have an extremely difficult time training his soul to the D-state. Fortunately, the Hall of Soul had refined many spiritual essence during this years. By using this incomparably large essence strength, his soul was forcefully being pushed up. However, the price of this increase was really expensive. Most of the spiritual essence that the Hall of Soul had obtained through many years of hard work had basically been completely devoured by him. However, the position of the nihility devouring flame in the Hun clan was extremely great. No one would say anything against his enjoyment of such a treatment. There will only be reward if there is effort. Currently, with my strength, it should be possible for me to block Jiu Yuan for a moment. If the both of us join hands, it would not be difficult for us to defeat him. The nihility devouring flame said. Hun Tiendi laughed and nodded. His eyes were a little excited as he softly said, it seemed that it is time to probe the location of the Chushi ancient god mansion. As long as we open the mansion and obtain the embryonic D-pill, you will be able to borrow its strength to break into that level no one had reached in 10,000 years and truly become the strongest existence in this world. The nihility devouring flame licked his lips. Immediately, he changed the topic of the conversation and laughed. However, you should also not forget that there is also something that I need within the mansion. This was our agreement back then. You can be rest assured. You and the Hun clan are closely related and we will definitely not lie to you. If it is really as you have said and the mansion has something that you need, I will help obtain it for you. Hun Tiendi laughed. The nihility devouring flame nodded with satisfaction after hearing this. The Hun clan had been able to continue existing until now because of him. Naturally, he had his own condition for giving so much help to the Hun clan. Otherwise, even with the strength of Hun Tiendi, it would be impossible for the latter to force him to do anything for the Hun clan. Humph, Chushi ancient god. The cold smile that was lifted on the nihility devouring flame's face was scattered. His eyes were turned towards Hun Tiendi. At this moment, the latter waved his sleeve. 8 ancient jades slowly flew out from his sleeve. The ancient jades floated above Hun Tiendi's head, emitting a faint luster as it did so. They began to beckon each other, creating a brilliant scene in the process. There seemed to be a strange fluctuation vaguely emitted in the process. Hun Tiendi's eyes were fiery hot as they glanced at the 8 jades. Suddenly, he bit the tip of his tongue. A mouthful of essence blood was spat out and it immediately landed on the 8 jade. The 8 jades, which were originally only emitting a faint luster, suddenly emitted a faint buzzing sound after they came into contact with the essence blood. The light also became increasingly powerful and the surface of the ancient jade vaguely had some strange lines flowing over it. The Chushi ancient god jade had been scattered for so many years. Now, I shall help put you back together. Hun Tiendi laughed out loud as he watched the unnatural phenomenon in the sky. His hand was clenched violently towards the ancient jade. After Hun Tiendi clenched his hand, the 8 ancient jades began to directly merge together. However, it did not shatter. Instead, it vaguely showed signs of being connected together as the light rays crossed each other. The ancient jade became increasingly close to each other and the buzzing sound also became even more intense. One could hear a couple of crack sound and 8 pieces of ancient jades were actually directly placed together. Immediately, a light was emitted and a complete ancient jade, which was even larger than his hand, had appeared in the sky. After the Chushi ancient god jade was completely placed together, an ancient and desolated aura was slowly spread from within the ancient jade. There was a faint light fog rising from within the ancient jade while the ancient aura spread. Immediately, it turned into a somewhat illusory old figure above the ancient jade. The old man was wearing black robes. His hair was made up of a couple of different colors. Each of the color seemed as though there was a flame rising from it, giving him an extremely mysterious appearance. His face appeared extremely ordinary. However, those deep space-like eyes seemed to be like the overlord of the world. Under the watch of those eyes, everyone, even an expert like Hun Tiendi, felt their soul quiver slightly. Chushi ancient god. The only one in this world who could cause Hun Tiendi to feel such an emotion was the legendary elite Dodi. This old man was likely the last legendary Dodi on the continent, the Chushi ancient god. Other than only a handful of experts within the Hun clan could resist the tremor and lift their heads, the others mostly had their heads firmly lowered. That feeling was as though they would be directly pressed by a pressure until they explode should they lift their heads even a little. Everyone's heart were filled with horror in the face of this pressure that was far greater than even Hun Tiendi. Humph, putting up an act. You are merely just an illusory figure, yet you must try to act mysterious. Hun Tiendi's expression was a little gloomy. Clearly, he felt a little furious at this emotion, which he had not felt for many years. His eyes were icy cold as he looked at the illusory figure. Suddenly, his hand grabbed towards the latter. Bang! Hun Tiendi's sharp palm wind struck heavily onto that illusory figure. However, his expression suddenly changed when the attack made contact. Soon after, an extremely terrifying strength was abruptly reflected and poured onto his body, sending it flying by thousands of feet. Be careful. Although it is only an illusory figure, it is after all something left behind by the Chu-Shi ancient god. The nihility devouring flame spoke in a deep voice. His eyes were also staring at the figure in a dark and cold manner. He involuntarily clenched his teeth and his eyes became a little complicated. Hun Tiendi's expression was a little dark and solemn as he turned around. He was in a bad mood after he had suffered a loss in front of so many clan members. With a frown, he asked, "How can we destroy this illusory figure? Why are you so anxious?" The nihility devouring flame rolled his eyes and said, "The location of the Chu-Shi ancient god mansion is hidden within the eyes of the illusory figure." Oh! Hun Tiendi was astonished at hearing this. He focused his mind and looked into the eyes of that illusory figure. A moment later, his expression gradually became grave. It seemed that he was indeed able to see some images, but it was not clear. Damn Chu-Shi ancient god. He actually still had such a technique. Even if an ordinary person managed to gather all 8 jades, it would be difficult to learn of the location of the mansion if he was unaware of its secret. Hun Tiendi exclaimed. Even with his strength, he still involuntarily let out a praise in the face of this technique. "Nihility, it seems that I have to trouble you." The nihility devouring flame smiled and nodded. Both of his eyes were suddenly dyed into a pure black color. 2 rays of light shot out from his eyes and entered the eyes of the illusory figure. Light reflected and an image, which was magnified by many times, appeared in the space where the black light was reflected. This is... Hun Tiendi narrowed his eyes and looked at the figure in the sky. It was an extremely spacious and foreign region. At a glance, one could tell that this region was not located in the central plains. The image swept past the mountains near the foreign terrain. After which, it was suddenly shifted downwards and directly entered deep underground. A sea of flame spread over the place as an endless sea of magma appeared. Where is this place? Hun Tiendi frowned tightly. From this scene, this sea of magma should be located underground. However, it was still impossible to find its exact location with just this alone. The image continued to venture deep into the sea of magma. With the increase in its depth, a kind of mysterious creature suddenly appeared in it. It was a kind of lizard-like creature. There was a fierceness within the creature's eyes. After this kind of lizard-like creature appeared, an ancient stone door began to appear deep within the magma world. The top of the stone door had 3 words. Do Di Mansion. Crack. The scene came to a sudden halt the moment Hun Tiendi's eyes paused on those 3 blurry ancient words. He also slowly exhaled. The excitement in his heart had also increased. What do you think? I am unfamiliar with that place. It is likely that I have never been there. The nihility devouring flame looked at Hun Tiendi and asked. I am also unfamiliar with it. Hun Tiendi frowned. The Dochi continent was quite a large place. Although this scene had shown a relatively vast region, it would not be easy to lock onto the exact location within a short moment. He mused for a moment before waving his hand. The 4 demon saints rushed over in a flash. Hun Tiendi merely glanced at them and spoke in an indifferent voice. Remember the terrain that you have seen, including the unique aspects of the mountain range, etc. After which, pass them to the clan members still outside. Ask them to use all of their strength to search every possible place. They must confirm the terrain. Tell them not to return if they fail. The 4 demon saints hurriedly replied respectfully and began to issue instructions. I can sense that Jiu Yuan is monitoring us. If we send out a large group of experts, it will definitely catch his attention. The nihility devouring flame remarked. It's fine. We'll confirm the location first. I will have my own methods when the time comes. Hun Tiendi nodded. He placed his hands behind his back and his eyes looked towards the flashing ancient jade in the sky. He muttered to himself. After spending such a great amount of effort in order to gather all of you, I do not believe that I am unable to find the location of the cave. This video will end here.